Hey guys, we're live once again. I see Art Blade is already here. Great to see you. I had a little bit of a stressful start. It took me 3 tries to get my microphone to connect to the computer, so that wasn't a particularly good way to begin this project, but hopefully that'll be our last problem for the next hour. So I hope you guys are all doing well. Brandon Parker's here. Good to see you. Hello there, Brandon. Brendan, I'm sorry, not Brandon. Nor Ganji. Hey, first time. How's it going, James? It's going good. Thanks so much for stopping by. It's great to see you. I actually have a couple of questions ahead today, which is a first. I guess people are getting used to the idea of the live streams. So I'll go ahead and answer a couple of those. One is Mr. Stanfran. He says he has 2 questions, and he said he listened to all 7 books of the Portal Wars series on YouTube Premium with no commercials, and he wants to know if I got compensated for that because he was feeling guilty. No need to worry about that. I do get paid for people who watch with YouTube Premium, so that's not a problem at all. I see Ian Creech is here again. Nice to see you. I did have a nice week. Thank you very much for asking. Sharky Sharkums says hello. Another new face. I haven't seen you at our live streams before. Great to have you. Mr. Stan Fran's other question was whether there's any chance of seeing my books in Kindle Unlimited. And the answer to that is no. I was in Kindle Unlimited for a while, but I'm pretty much dedicated to being wide now, which means being on all the different retailers. Nor Ganji asks, big fan of your Divine Key trilogy and looking forward to reading more of your work soon. Question, at which point did you decide to include the Void as the big bad enemy instead of the demon Balthus? The Void is sort of the big bad enemy for my entire fictional universe, mostly because the Void wants the universe destroyed and darkness returned to the way it was before the Creator came and made the universe. So technically behind the scenes, he'll be the biggest big bad of any story set in my universe. Not exactly sure when he became an important part of that particular trilogy, but I knew I needed something to separate Balthus from his Demon Lord Master, so the Void was the only thing I could think of powerful enough to take the place of the Demon Lord he served. Sharky Sharkum says, LOL, I changed my username from Stephen Hoy to Sharky because Stephen is such a common name. Yeah, I could see that. I don't know if you're from New York, upstate New York or anything, but there's a lot of Hoys around here. One of my teachers in high school, the gym teacher, was his name was Hoy. Okay, another of my earlier questions. Oh, the Kindle Unlimited thing. Yeah, I don't like. One of the reasons I don't have any of my books in Kindle Unlimited at the moment is I don't like the idea of being exclusive to any one retailer. If anything goes bad, you're in real trouble. Norganji says, thanks, James. As an aspiring writer myself, I often struggle with third-person limited and third-person omniscient. Any tips? The easiest thing to remember is if you're writing third-person limited, every scene, just plant yourself in the head of the character you want to tell it from, and don't jump out and from scene to scene. From when you get to the next scene, you can move on to the next character. But for any given scene, anything that character doesn't know, you shouldn't be able to. You shouldn't write about anything that the character whose viewpoint you're in doesn't know. That's the most important thing. Ursula T. Hello, first time live, but listened offline previously. That's awesome, Ursula. I'm so glad you decided to stop by. It's always good to see a new face or new screen name, anyway. Lord Narco says, what's more important in the story, plot or character? I would say character, because without the character, nothing happens, so there's no plot. Basically, the character dictates pretty much everything that happens. His reactions, his or her, I should say, reaction to what happens on any given plot point determines what the next plot point is going to be. So you could tell a story, the same story over and over, and just change the main character, and it would be a different plot based on who the character was. So yeah, I would say character is more important. El Chamuco, I think. El Chamuco. Great books, thanks. Yeah, I appreciate that. I'm glad everyone's enjoying them. Let's see, any new questions? Global Hoppy, yes, sir, I'm here. Great to have you, Global. Thanks so much for stopping. I think you've been here for all 3 of my live streams, so that's awesome. We're up to 13 watching, so pretty good start. Oh, I saw another question on one of my videos earlier. I thought I'd talk about. Somebody wanted to know why I didn't give my guards or other important characters magical items, magic rings or whatever. And the reason is pretty much all of the magical items in the Portal Wars universe work by somebody channeling ether into them. So if you're not a wizard, you can't really use most of them. The only exception being the demon skull, or the skull that held the curse that was released when it was dropped into water. Lord Narco asks, how do you write fight scenes? Fight scenes are tricky. If you just describe the blow by blow, they can get boring. The most important thing to focus on is how your main character, or your viewpoint character, I should say, is reacting and their thoughts as they fight. You also want to, just a technical thing, but as you're writing, you want to write short, punchy sentences rather than long compound stuff, and then lots of page break or line breaks, so it reads like a fight, bang 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 bang, quick, rather than big blocks of text. Sunny K says, hey James, big fan. How are your books connected? Do they seem to be in the same universe, but are they in the same world? And if they're in the same world, do they happen in different timelines? They are the same universe, but they're all different worlds. Yeah. The fun part of it is, for me at least, is each world I create, I try and figure out a new way for the ether to be used in the magic, in the world's magic, or sometimes the people aren't even really aware of it. Like in the Ages of Merlin, the main character didn't even know the ether existed, I think, until the 10th book or the 9th book. And the magic works completely differently in the Soul Force saga. Basically, the people aren't aware that the ether exists, but they absorb it, and that's what's transformed into their body, transforms it into Soul Force, which is what makes their magic work. So I think that's part of the fun, at least for me, of making new worlds in the same universe. Lord Narco says, thanks for the answers, man. Your books are AW. I'm assuming that's awesome. But Artblade says, James, in reply to my positive comment on Joe Abercrombie's work, someone recommended a certain James E. Wisher to me. I found that funny and thought I'd let you know people are recommending you. Well, that's awesome. Anybody who recommends any of my work in any way association with Joe Abercrombie is a huge compliment. I think he's probably one of, if not the best, writers working in fantasy right now. Certainly my favorite. Nor says, not sure if I missed it in the book, but was it ever explained how the first Shadow Man was also a dragon or became a dragon? The first Shadow Man was the world's guardian dragon. He created the legend of the Shadow Man to explain how the next Shadow Man would come along. He basically created a legend for others to follow out of his own work. I'm not sure. I think I explained it, but I'm not 100% sure. I wrote that like almost 2 years ago, and I can't really remember exactly 100%. Stephen Sinax, great books, James. I really enjoy your work. Thanks. I appreciate that, Steve, and thanks so much for stopping by the live stream. It's great to see you. I think this might be the first time I've seen your name pop up. Global Hop E says, any thoughts on how much gore to place in fight scenes? I usually go for realistic descriptions, but does that take away from the fight? It can be tricky. I would say think about your target audience more than anything. If you're writing like YA, you definitely want to keep the gore to a minimum. But if you're writing dark adult fantasy, you can go as hard as you want. It's really very, very subjective, depending on the age of the people who's going to be reading it and what you're comfortable with. If you can write a good gory action scene in a grim, dark kind of fantasy setting, that's great. If it feels like describing all the blood and guts is slowing down the action scene itself, you can just leave enough, or maybe just describe the finishing scene, that sort of thing. It's really something you can figure out based on your strengths as well as what you're going for in any given scene. Excuse me. Yeah, it's all very subjective, that sort of thing, depending on what you're going for. Al Chamuco says you did. I'm assuming he's referring to the earlier question about whether I explained the Shadow Man thing or not. I'm glad I did. Thanks for confirming that. Steve gives me a thumbs up, so that's good. Yeah, it's when you get up to around 40 books, it's hard to remember all the individual details for especially some of the older ones. Although the Dragonspire Chronicles is my most recent one, so I should be better. But I've written, I think, 7 books since that was published. So Steve says, what I'm finding is your books keep me interested. I keep looking forward. Well, that's good. I do my best to keep everybody interested. A great writer once said, the best way to write is to leave out the parts people skip. So I try to do that. Ian Creech says, when I finished the Portal Wars, Death's End, I would like to get into one of your sci-fi series. Do you have a suggestion where to start? I've only got one sci-fi series, and it's Children of Darkness. That's the first book in the series, so I would say that's a great place to start. And that is on YouTube, so you can listen right there, or you can pick up a book or whatever, however you prefer. That's a fun series. I wish more people would buy a copy. It doesn't sell very well. I think I'm mostly known for fantasy now, so a lot of people don't try my sci-fi. Ian says, cool, thanks. I will start that. Good. I hope you like it. If you do, be sure to leave a comment. I'd love to hear what you think. That The Children of Darkness was actually the first novel I ever published, so it's always going to have a special place in my heart. Global Hoppy asks, what are your thoughts on your antagonist? I want to go for a relatable one. Yeah, that's one way definitely to go. It's definitely if you want something more of a realistic feel to it, having your protagonist also not be a complete monster, makes them feel more like they're a real person. But if you're writing a demon or some kind of monster, then you don't have to do that. Um, I'm trying to think what my one of my more I mean, all of my villains have their own goals, and the fact that their goals are opposed by the other people is what makes them the villains rather than any particular evil thing. I've had a bunch of comments saying they think Otto's the villain of the Portal Wars rather than the hero, so I'm not sure if I got that one right or not, but it was a lot of fun to write him. So Artblade says, I really like your sci-fi stories. Please don't give up on it. No, I'm not going to give up on it. I got to write one more to wrap up that series and kind of tie it into my greater universe. You'll see when I eventually get to it, you'll see how the Children of the Void got their name. So many ideas. It's hard to decide which one to write next sometimes. I figure at this point I could not get another idea for the rest of my life and never run out of things to write, which is really a good problem to have overall. Oh, I missed one. Sharky Sharkum says, I'm glad you said that. Leave out the parts people skip. That's an awesome quote, and thank you for quoting it. Yes, it's definitely important to, if you want to keep your pacing up and have people really enjoying your stuff, not getting too bogged down and slowing down your work is important. Steve says he's about to start that series, so that's excellent. I hope you enjoy it. Global Hoppy. No, I got that one already. Scott Mayer says, I enjoyed the Rogue Star series. However, I'm a fan of both sci-fi and fantasy. Yeah, so am I. I actually, I get bored if I read one genre for too long, so I end up skipping around. I read a few fantasies, then a sci-fi, then a detective story. Just keep rotating through them to keep my imagination entertained. Sharky says, that's how I feel too. I get overwhelmed with all the stuff in my imagination. Yeah, it's definitely overwhelming. I'll write a series, and while I'm working on it, I'll be like, okay, I know just what I'm going to do next. And by the time I get to the end of it, I've had 5 or 6 new ideas and end up writing something completely different. So Cedric M says, sorry I'm late. Hopefully I haven't missed much. Nope, you haven't missed too much, Cedric, and thanks so much for stopping by. It's great to see you. Brandon Parker says, I always got the feeling Otto was a villain in the making. Yeah, I don't really think of him as a villain. I think of him as more of a hero to some and a villain to others, I guess. Because in Garenland, he's very much a savior, especially to the wizards. He set them free and gave them power when they were powerless. So I guess it depends. A lot of times, who the villain is depends on your point of view and how you're looking at them. So Artblade says, speaking of so many ideas, can you write on more than one book simultaneously, like 6 pages a day, but every other day? No, I cannot do that. I can only write one story at a time. Otherwise, I start getting my main characters confused, and it's a mess. So no, I work on one story at a time, and I can edit another story. So if I've got copy edits or something to go through, I could write, my 6 pages in the morning and then edit for an hour in the afternoon without getting messed up. But I definitely can't write 2 different fiction projects at the same time. I've tried it, but it's a complete mess when I do. So I didn't try it very many times. Artblade says, LOL. Okay, thanks. Yeah, it would definitely be funny if you saw what came out of some of my efforts. when you have a big cast, it's hard to keep things straight sometimes without a second book going on, much less with a second one. So, yeah, I don't recommend it. I know they said Isaac Asimov used to have a fiction and a nonfiction project going at the same time. That way, if he got stuck on one, he could just jump over to the other. But I don't write nonfiction, so that wouldn't work very well for me. Cedric M says, speaking of the topic of Otto Schenk, with the production of your new book, see Otto once more, and will there be more progression of the family of Otto and his wife? I'm not exactly sure. I'll be honest with you. I just barely came up with the idea, a rough idea of what it might be. And I know there's going to be at least probably a 10-year time jump. So I'm not sure. I'm sure they'll be in it, Anna Maria and the kid will be in it, but I'm not 100% sure what part they'll play. Global Hoppy says, for me, the hardest part is going back and remember things I left off for the future. In specific, I let a character live, planning on making him stronger for revenge purposes. Yeah, going back is never an easy thing. Keeping good notes helps. One thing you can do is outline in reverse, which is I kind of do that, where first you write the story, and then at the end of each chapter you write a little outline of what the main story was. That way you can just go back and glance at your outline afterwards. That helps me anyway. So, little trick for anybody who doesn't outline ahead like I do. As far as the new Portal War Saga book, I really haven't got too much details about that yet. It'll probably be, I want to say, late summer, early fall next year before I even start working on it with everything else I've got going on. I'm actually writing a new trilogy right now set in Colt's Land. That's set 10 years after the Chamber of Eternity. So that's going pretty well. Jump back. I think I got one more question that somebody sent ahead. Sherry Freeman asks, what would I say my top 3 or 4 do not miss books are? For me, it would be The Sword of Shannara by Terry Brooks, The Blade Itself by Joe Abercrombie, the first book of Malazan, Book of the Fallen, which the name escapes me at the moment, but just picking one more is tough. Probably the first Dark Elf book in Forgotten Realms. That was a great series. I thoroughly enjoyed that, if you haven't read it. Steve says, thanks, James. Very cool chat. Off to do life. Peace. Well, Steve, thanks so much. Glad you could make it. Hopefully you can stop by again next week. Artblaze says, Cedric M. I think the name is Otto, but the pronunciation is like Otto. Yeah, it can be funny when naming a pilot Otto. You can think of an autopilot. Yeah, it is. It's OTTO. Like Otto von Bismarck. Cedric M says, have I considered create a comic book out of the saga? I think it would be a fantastic collector's item. I'm working on a comic book based on my Soul Force saga universe. I may do one for the Portal Wars too at some point, but comic books are tremendously expensive to make, so it's not something I'm rushing to do right away. I've started making I'm sure I mentioned this before, but I started making a motion comic out of the Soul Force Saga comic I'm working on. I'm hoping to have it done by the end of the month, but that's a long process too. Scott Mayer says Rogue Star has some essence of Han Solo meets Gray Man. What makes Otto to me such a compelling story is the replacement of his soul. You just mentioned the blade itself. Great series. Yes, that's a great series. Yes, Han Solo was definitely the inspiration for Marcus Drake. Yeah, replacing having some of Otto's soul burned away was kind of a fun idea, I thought. It also explains how he goes from kind of a naive kid to more of a dark character. The blade itself has one of my favorite quotes. It's the last. I think it's the last argument of Kings. Napoleon had that. I think it was Napoleon had that engraved on one of his cannons. Is what it says at the start of the book, which I always thought was kind of a cool quote. Ian Creech says, I never read Star Wars before until recently. The Darth Bane trilogy is really cool. Yes, I read the Darth Bane trilogy and I loved it. I never did. I know it said somewhere online, but I could never find it where it said whether Bane or Zana ended up winning their final duel and who ended up, going forward. I used to be a huge Star Wars fan. I think I've got behind me on the shelf. I think I've got pretty much every expanded universe book, but it's kind of gone downhill since Disney took over. The sequel trilogies was just kind of hard to watch, honestly. I think what bothers me most is that it's so much potential that's wasted. They could have been great, and they made them not great. But whatever. I don't really like to complain about pop culture. It's not really my thing. Lots of good channels that do, though, if that's what you're into. Another good Star Wars series from the expanded universe is the Yuuzhan Vong trilogy. It's not really a trilogy; it's a series, but the Yuuzhan Vong books are really good too. Oh, Edward Boisvert? I'm going to go with Boisvert, I think. Thank you, sir. Your books on YouTube make my trucker job fun. You're welcome. I'm glad to hear that. I get quite a few truckers who listen to my books, so glad I could make the long hours on the road more entertaining. And I think this is the first time I've seen your voice or your name on my live stream. So welcome aboard. I see we're up to 17 people watching, so that's good. A little bit better than last week at 4, anyway. Yeah, I think I had somebody who said they were an airplane mechanic too, who said they listened to the audiobooks while they were working. Hopefully, it doesn't distract them too much. I'd hate to think of something bad happening. Let's see, any more questions? Scott Meyer says, I'm taking my grandchildren to the zoo. Thank you for hours of entertainment while I drive over the road. I'm looking forward to your next book. Keep it up. Thanks, Scott. Have fun at the zoo. Next book should be ready in January. Joe, my narrator, has the manuscripts, and he's working on getting the audiobooks done. So hopefully we can have a successful Kickstarter and then get them out there on the retailers. They'll be coming up on YouTube as well. I'll be releasing one a week over the course of the Kickstarter, so that should be fun. Ian Creech says, yeah, I drive from Philly to upstate New York and Pennsylvania a lot, and your books help me make the trip so much better. Well, that's good. I'm glad to hear it. How far upstate do you come? I live in Essex County, so some people say anything north of New York City is upstate. which I always thought was funny. I think the people from New York City think Essex County and the Adirondack area is actually part of some other state or Canada or something. Strider, hello, good to see you. I really have been enjoying the Portal Wars the past 2 weeks since I found your channel. I listen to while commuting to work, taking walks, and doing chores. Thanks a lot, James. Your work is amazing. Well, that's very kind of you. Thanks. I appreciate that, and I'm glad I can make your commute a little more enjoyable. Ian says, don't forget to check out the 3 Body Problem series. No, I won't forget. I'm not sure when I'll get to it, but I did remember. Delaware County, New York, and Wayne County, Pennsylvania, where the Delaware River comes. Yeah, that's still pretty far down, downstate. Let's see, anything else happening? Oh, that's what I was going to ask. On Scott Mayer's earlier question about Han Solo meets Gray Man, and I was wondering who Gray Man is. If you're still watching, Scott, if you could pop in in your comment there on who the Gray Man is. I'm not familiar with it. I heard of D Gray Man, which is an anime. I wonder if. S. Ray says, I'm so happy I found your books. Excuse me. I binged through the Portal Wars and I'm now to the Divine Key trilogy. Will there be more books in the Portal War saga? Yeah, we were talking about that earlier. I'm kicking around an idea right now that I'll probably write late next year, but I'm going to have other books set in that world. I'm working on a trilogy set in Colt's Land right now, so. But that won't be Otto won't be in that one unless he's mentioned in passing by someone. It's set in Montag in the north. Yeah, it's a fun one. I'm about 10,000 words in, so it's going along good. When we finish up here, I'll be jumping in to write another 7 pages on that this afternoon. So excited to see where it goes. That's my favorite part of writing is finding out what my stories are going to be, because I really don't know until I get done how they're going to end. S says, yay, I'm still happy and excited for that. Oh, good. Happy to hear it. I think this might be my first time seeing your name pop up on a live stream too, so that's very cool. Thanks so much for joining us. Anything else? Anything else? I don't see anything. On a completely unrelated note, around here at least, the trees have all turned nice bright red, and we're pretty near peak for fall foliage season, so traffic has been kind of busy on the back roads. You got to be careful where you're driving. I don't know about you, where you guys are, but we get a lot of leaf peepers coming to visit this area. Of course, once the leaves fall, we'll be talking snow, which is a good deal less enjoyable. Ian Creech says, I was going to say the leaves are changing up there. Yep. We're either at peak or we'll be at peak probably next week. So that's when all the city folks like to come up and stare at the leaves. I forget who said it, but one of the comedians, stand-up comedians, said he thought it was hilarious that people would travel all around the country staring at dead leaves. And I suppose when you look at it that way, it is kind of funny. No, one of our local attractions is Whiteface Mountain, and they have a gondola that goes up and down, and you can see all the mountains and stuff. Ian says, I lived in Burlington for a spell. Yeah, that's just across the lake from me, basically. I haven't been over in a while, but my mom and I used to go over. She liked to go shop on, you know, on the walking Church Street, I think they call it. But I don't think I've been over there in like 6 years. The ferry ride is always nice, but I'm not much for shopping. Edward says, going to Maine tonight. Traffic is really bad on Sundays. Yes, I bet it is, especially this time of year. Artblight says, James, speaking of other authors whom you like, I guess you know Benedict Jacka, the Alex versus series, kind of like Jim Butcher, who actually praises Jacka. I haven't read any of his books, but I do know the name. I think I used him as a target in some of my ads, just trying to sell some of my books. There are so many great authors out there. It's hard to get to everybody's books. I've been reading a lot of Japanese light novels lately. I'm reading Spirit Chronicles right now, and that's quite a fun series. Who else have I read lately? If you ever find the time, you're going to like it. Yes, I'm sure it's good. It's just a matter of squeezing it in. I've got so many books ahead. It's ridiculous. I think I've got a dozen Vampire Hunter D novels I haven't gotten to yet on my iPad. So, so Traxxas says, I finally made it here. Welcome. It's great to see you. I think you're a new arrival as well, so that's great. So he says, you talked about making Colt's Land sequel of the Portal Wars. Is that why you seem to have abandoned this Elsa character that was a genius construct, Smith? Also, were the Portal inspired by Stargate? Not specifically Stargate, although the design, I think my cover designer was inspired by Stargate for his designs on the book covers, but it wasn't specifically inspired by that, though I do enjoy Stargate SG-1 very much. Yeah, Elsa is she's in the prequel novella to this new series, so you'll get to see how she made out after the war. I didn't really abandon her so much as I was following Otto's story and he left, so she didn't get mentioned after that since he didn't have any interactions with her. Cedric M says, I recently completed a book that is post-apocalyptic science fiction, but I'm unaware of where to find an editor for beginners on a budget. Any advice for rookies? It depends on your budget. One thing you can do is, if you know any other rookies, you can sometimes trade. You can do you can edit for them and they can edit for you if you're just looking for typo catching. Otherwise, I'm not sure. Let me think. If you know Writers Cafe, there's a what do you call it? Message board there where you can look through people offering editing and see if any of them have a price you're able to afford. But that's all I can really think of. Nor says, if I had to pick one, and just one book is my favorite of all time, a book you would consider a masterpiece of literature, what would it be? Oh boy. Let me think. That's really tough. Masterpiece of literature. I guess if you're talking about the best written book I've ever read, I would have to go with The Lord of the Rings, the first one. I think Tolkien was a great a linguist. The way he used language was brilliant. Certainly better than I could ever do it. But I do find some of his descriptions a bit long now and then. But as far as pure writing ability, I think he's probably one of the best out there. As Atraxis says, Otto seemed like a talent hoarder, so that's why I thought for sure he would have taken her with him. I probably would have if things had worked out a little differently, but he was in a bit of a rush at the end of the Chamber of Eternity, so he didn't really have time to go and get her. William Giblin says, "Hello, I love your books." Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Great to have you. Great to have you stop by the live stream. Nora says, my answer is Frankenstein by Mary Shelley for the masterpiece. Yeah, that was good too. I remember reading it. I think I might have read it in high school, maybe 10th grade. Ian Creek says, Fall of the Roman Republic. I haven't read that one. Strider says, Lord of the Rings is my favorite too. Great to know you love it. Yep. And I could guess that based on your screen name. Zatriza says, I think the reason the Portal War saga is more popular than your other series is the size of the problem and that there was a clear direction for Otto all the time wanting to be an arcane lord. Yeah, that could be. I like to think there's a fairly good sized problem in all my series, but that's also one of the reasons it ended where it did on book 7, because Otto kind of gives up on being an arcane lord because he doesn't want to lose what's left of his soul. So Strider says, LOL, yeah. Strider says, and by the size of the problem, it's easier for people to follow along and get involved by it. Yeah. Becoming the arcane lord thing is just sort of what's going on. The real problems are him dealing with, especially in the first 4 books, dealing with the war and building the empire, so he has a base to work from. William Giblin says, the Last Kingdom book is really good. The Last Kingdom. I'm not familiar with that one. Who's the author? As it tries says, for instance, when you read the Rogue Star space opera, it seems very different and vague what the goal is, and he seemed rushed and pulled between different problems. I suppose that's true. The books are a little bit more standalone, I think, whereas the Portal Wars is more serialized, especially the first 4, like I said. Yeah. Sometimes it's hard to figure out what's a big enough, that's one of the things, is figuring out what's a big enough problem. And sometimes the problems grow over time as you're writing the series. Tracy says, have I read Red Rising? It's insanely good. It's a mix between The Hunger Games and Star Wars. I have not. I haven't even heard of it. Who's the author? I'll have to look it up. I do enjoy a science fantasy story like Star Wars, where you have wizards in space, basically. That's a lot of fun. I've got an idea for a story like that. I just haven't got to it yet. I seem to say that a lot. I haven't got to it yet. William Giblin says Bernard Cromwell. Oh, I love Bernard Cromwell. So yeah, I'll definitely have to look that up. As a Travis says, Pierce Brown. Oh, I haven't heard of him, but I'll have to look him up. Yeah, Bernard Cromwell is great. His historical fiction is some of the best out there. I read one. I can't remember the name of it. It's a 3-book series. I can't remember the name of it, but it's about an archer during the I want to say the 100 Years' War, but I'm not completely sure. It's been a few years since I read it, but that was a great series. Just a sec. I'll be right back, guys. Hang on. Sorry about that. As the track says, do I read any manga or Eastern type media? Yes, I read. I read a lot of light novels and occasionally manga, but I prefer the light novels. Brandon Parker says one of my favorites is The Sword of Truth. Yes, that's an excellent book. I read the whole series. I think it was a shame when Terry Goodkind died. M. Oh my. Xylonax, I'm gonna say, says, "Hey all, welcome. It's good to see you. Glad you could make it." What do I think about Hayao Miyazaki? How the way he creates his work. Um, I'm not exactly sure how he creates. I mean, I know he does animation, but other than that, I don't really know much about his process. So I'm not sure. Uh, William Giblin says he really liked The Squire and Death and Honor. Yeah, those are both fun stories. Those are some of my earlier stuff. I published those both my first year in the business. The trash says what my favorite light novels are. I really enjoy Goblin Slayer. I think I've got the whole series of that on the shelf behind me. Irregular at the Magic High School is good. What did I just finish? Oh, Black Summoner. I've been enjoying that, although it is a little bit derivative. Well, they all are, but it really reminds me of Ari Fretta. I'm sure I'm saying that wrong, but that's a good series too. I think there's only one book left, and that one will be finished. So I'm quite looking forward to seeing how it ends. A man of great taste. Yeah, pretty good. Pretty good taste anyway. I like to think. Xylonax says, I want to thank you for your audiobooks on YouTube. They helped me through 4 months of being a boring hospital. Yeah, I'm happy to hear that. I've had a couple of people who had some chronic health issues say that my books were helping them through a boring time. So it's very very nice to hear, when you can do something for someone like that. I hope you're out of the hospital and feeling better now. Zatraxis recommends Spice and Wolf. I've heard of that, but I haven't seen it or read it yet. Strider says Jobless Reincarnation by any chance? It's in my list on Amazon. I'm reading Spirit Chronicles right now, and Jobless Reincarnation is probably next on my to-do list. Damon Blackfire says he just finished the Divine Key saga and enjoyed. Thanks for upload. What should you listen to next? If you haven't listened to the Portal War saga, you could definitely check that out. Pretty much any of the fantasy. If you liked the Divine Key trilogy, you should like any of the fantasy, and maybe you try the sci-fi on my channel too, if you want to. William Gibbons says, is there going to be Death and Honor Book 2? I don't have anything planned at the moment. Global Hop E says, Goblin Slayer is amazing, and Irregular at the Magic High School was top tier. I love a silent protagonist that is kind of overpowered. Yes. Goblin Slayer isn't too overpowered, but Tatsuya definitely is. Zatraxi says, I recommend Webtoons. The art is incredible. Korean artists are insane. Yes, I've glanced at Webtoons a few times. It's very up and down. Some of them are really great, and some of them are not so much great. Ruro Car. I'm going with Ruro Car. I hope that's right. Hi there, James. I just want to say thanks for your hard work and telling your stories. Cheers from Germany. Well, I appreciate that. I'm glad you could stop by, and nice to hear somebody from Germany is enjoying my stuff. It's actually Germany is my, I want to say, third best market after the United States and the UK. So I know a lot of you guys over there enjoy a good fantasy story. Zatraxis wants to know if I read Patrick Rothfuss. I have not read Patrick's stuff yet. I'm waiting for him to finish his series before I start, because I'm not the most patient person in the world, and at the rate he's going, it's going to be a while. I had George R.R. Martin already trick me once. I thought the first 4 books were done, and then he didn't release another one for like 5 years, and I decided to wait for him until he finishes it too. Stratus wants to know why I use StreamYard and not OBS. Basically, StreamYard seemed like it was the easier of the two, so that's why I'm using it. Yeah, Portal Wars, is it? Thanks, yes. NBH Holloway says, yeah, right on. Stratus says, haha, yeah, it's been 10 years. Oh, since you used StreamYard or OBS Studios? Rukai says, pronunciation was great. We talked via email a few times, but I go by Ruro Car online. Oh, cool. I'm glad I got it right then. And glad you could make it to the live stream. Steve Bob says, thanks for my hard work. You're welcome. It's I love what I do, so I consider myself very lucky to be able to do it for a living. There aren't very many people that can say that. So Travis says, no, since Rothfuss released the last part of his series. Did he? Is that series complete now? If it is, I'll definitely take a look. Steve Bob says, cool. Yeah. Being a writer is absolutely the best thing I've ever done for a job. So I can say I have no plans of stopping anytime soon. I suppose, like pretty much all other writers, my goal is to drop dead at my keyboard someday, hopefully far down the road. Having just typed the end on my most recent novel. As Travis says, but I think the last book will release soon since some people already received more than a glimpse, like the streamer Skara. Yeah, I hope so. And when it does, I'll definitely check it out, but not until. Uh, NBH Holloway says, have I read the Dresden Files? I have not read them yet. Rural Car says, Portal Wars is my favorite series that I wrote. I like that the plot, that the protagonist is powerful, but it still has to think and overcome obstacles, and that he's not lawful good. Haha, yeah. Otto is definitely not lawful good. That's one of the trickiest things, is to make your character strong enough to make it, interesting and give them options, but still make them have things, that challenge them. Because a lot of times you'll find a book with an overpowered main character that you never feel like there's any danger to them, which is okay sometimes, but also makes it kind of boring sometimes too. Global Hoppy says, how do I come up with the female characters? Being male, it can be hard to figure out how to write female heroines is a tough sale. I'm not really sure. I try and figure out what their motivations and personalities are, and then just write them the best I can. I would try and make them well-rounded people with goals and flaws and all of that stuff. If you make them just a character like any other, that's not too hard to write a female character usually. As Travis says, I don't know how to start writing when it's such a daunting task to write a coherent and detailed book when you're trying to stick out of the crowd. Try not to think of writing that you're writing a book. Try to think I'm writing a page, or I'm writing a chapter or whatever, and then just let it keep building. Sometimes thinking like, oh God, I got to write 300 or 400 pages or whatever. It can be overwhelming. So, but if you just take it a chapter at a time, a page at a time, it builds up. Of course, after you've done it once or twice, and you know you can do it, it gets a lot easier. Steve Bob says, LOL, looking forward to your books as they come out. I appreciate that. I think the next series, the Soulbound Saga, is going to be 5 books, and it was a lot of fun to write. I'm re-listening as Joe records the audiobooks. I'm re-listening to them myself, and I'm quite enjoying them. It's a good sign when you can listen to your own books and still find you're getting lost in the story. As Trent says, for instance, many authors specialize in some things, like Tolkien with language, giving their stories more life and authenticity. Yeah, but even if you're not a specialist with language like Tolkien, you can still give your books, life and authenticity. If you've read a lot and have a good imagination, I don't want to say it's not hard, because writing a book is kind of hard, but it's not an Herculean task, let's say, after you get some practice. Brandon Parker says, have I read Arcane Ascension? I have not. I hadn't even heard of it, but it'll definitely go on my to-be-read list. The Travis says, do you think it's important for an author to have a lot of life experience? No, I don't think so. I think it's important for an author to have read a lot of books. I haven't had a ton of like what you would call serious life experiences, exciting ones at least, like a military thing or anything like that. But I feel like I can still tell a good story. It's not about the page at a time. It's about the detail and making it entertaining to read. The detail builds up over the course of writing it. And you can always go back. Like if you write a chapter and then you get to the next chapter and you realize, oh, I want to say this, but I didn't set it up. You can always jump back to the first chapter, whatever chapter you need to jump back to. You can always go back and add as you go. So building it up in layers, you don't have to get it. You don't have to get everything perfectly right the first time through. You can just add a little more and a little more and a little more until the book's done and as detailed and as you need it to be. I feel like I need to study history and engineering to make it to the depth I want. I read history for enjoyment, and I've never studied engineering. So, I mean, it can't hurt, but it's not anything absolutely necessary. Steve Bob says thanks. I've completely forgotten what for, but you're welcome. Rizzy1111, another new name I haven't seen. Have you heard of Dungeon Lord by Hugo Huesca? If you had, do you know if he's still alive? I have not. I played the game Dungeon Lord, but I don't know Hugo Huesca. Homing in on the 1 hour mark. I'd rather say it right now. Thanks for the stream. It's been fun and looking forward to the next one. Have a great day. You're welcome, Art Blade. And yes, we're just a little over an hour, so I'll be wrapping it up shortly. It was great to see you. This will be my last call for questions. So anybody who has them, go ahead and post them. And I think I'll be wrapping it up in 5 minutes. So Strider says, I wish I could write a story in the future too, but I don't feel like I have read enough literature yet to be able to write a solid piece. Yeah, I've read almost 2,000 books, so it gives you a lot of stuff to pull from. NBH Holloway says, I joined your YouTube when I was, you just had part of one of your web books up because I was waiting until it was all up and I never checked back for a couple of years. I was excited when I saw all the content. Yeah. When I switched to putting up whole audiobooks, the channel really started to grow like crazy. So that was definitely the right call. The Chinese says, have I watched Clone Wars? Yes, I love the Clone Wars. It's probably the best Star Wars storytelling out of all of it I've seen. The way they brought Darth Maul to life was really well done. I thought it was great. Ruro Car says, if I take recommendations, I suggest check out In Her Name by Michael R. Hicks. It's sci-fi, and I was amazed at how well he developed the main alien species. All right, thanks very much for the recommendation. William Giblin says, I read The Lord of the Rings. It is a fast way to put me to sleep with the old English writing. Yeah, it is that. I remember I read it or tried to read it. I think I only made it partway through in high school. And then I read it again when I was older and was able to get into it a little bit more. NBH Holloway says, all you need to learn is key principles to look like you know enough. That's absolutely true. There's a phrase I picked up from Dean Wesley Smith when it comes to writing and authors. Or 5-minute experts. Basically, you spend 5 minutes on Google and you can become enough to write a given scene on almost any subject. Estray says, your response to not having much patience for waiting for the books explains a lot of Otto's character. One of the things I loved about Otto is his no-nonsense approach, and she misses Grubber. Yeah, Grubber was a funny character. Steve Bob says, your next reading. Thank you. Oh, yeah, you're welcome. Estray says she also misses Grubber. Yeah. It's always funny which of the small side characters people will enjoy. Zatraxa says, don't forget to look up Red Rising from Pierce Brown. It really is different than the usual sci-fi story. No, I won't forget. And he says, Anakin and Maul are depicted so much more depth. Yes. They absolutely brought those two characters to life so much better in the Clone Wars. Global Hoppy says, one last question. Magical robots or magical virus? Maybe magical robots with a virus. I don't know. NBH Holloway. Hey, check out Dresden. You'll love it. Butcher knocks the characters out of the park. Yeah, I've heard great things about it, so I'll definitely look into it eventually. Do you know Lies of Locke Lamore? I think the writing is also very hard for non-native English speakers. I've read, I know the name, but I haven't read the books yet. Rurokar says, defeat magical robots with a magical virus, perhaps. Yeah, that's actually a really neat idea. All right. I am going to call the live stream good. It was great. Everybody could stop in and say hi and ask your questions. I thoroughly enjoyed chatting with you, and I'll see you next Sunday. We'll be back at 4 o'clock, so hopefully some of you can stop in and say hi again. Global Hobby says R2D2 with a cold. Yeah. Although I wonder what happens when he sneezes. All that oil comes out, maybe. All right, guys. Great seeing you, and I'll see you again soon. Take it easy.